Well, good morning, Clyde Park Church of the Nazarene. This is Pastor Ryan with your daily office reflection for today. Today's psalm comes to us from the book of Psalms. This is Psalm 6, which I will read for you now. Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are shaking with terror. My soul is also with terror, while you, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, and save my life. Deliver me for the sake of your steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who can give you praise? I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with weeping. My eyes waste away because of grief. They grow weak because of my foes. Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and struck with terror. They shall turn back and in a moment be put to shame. Um, so, Psalm 6, in the NRSV and some versions of it, it says a prayer for recovery from grave illness, which may be an appropriate psalm for this season. The reason that the church has gone back and forth on this, whether it's actually about somebody who's sick or somebody who's afflicted from some sort of disorder like anxiety, or if it's somebody who has actual enemies. There is some vagueness to most psalms, but this one is definitely got some vagueness in it too. But in verse 2, the cry is for somebody to be healed. It is not a request for forgiveness. It is not a request for salvation. It is a request for healing, which is why people have thought that this is a prayer for recovery from illness. I did a little bit of research and saw that there's some variance, but I think it is appropriate for us to cry to the Lord for healing. One thing that I wanted us to focus on in this is actually verse 5. I think the rest of the psalm makes sense to us if we've gone through any sort of trial. It's a very fast-paced psalm, like it jumps from idea to idea rather quickly. There have been some commentators who have complained that this one is not a very tight-knit psalm because it isn't really following a very good thought pattern flow. But if we are emotionally distressed, this speech pattern does make sense. The way that it's written is very much how we might feel in times of great distress. Clearly, it starts off in anguish. It's begging God to act and to move. It's a recognition of God's ability to act in this way. And it clearly ends with victory, trusting that God will vindicate the author. But I wanted to focus on verse 5 because I think it's an important verse beyond this immediate theological context. It's important for us to understand. I think it applies even when people aren't sick. And it says, "For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who can give you praise?" And so the argument that the psalmist is making to God for why God should save this person's life is because in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, in the grave, who can give you praise? So one of my emphases for those of you who've listened to my preaching and to my teaching, I'm very much interested in end times and in the afterlife. That because I think how we imagine our afterlife influences how we live today. And if we have a wrong understanding of the end, then we might be going in the wrong direction. So because I'm focused on the end because I think it impacts how we live today. And in this, death is not desired. And sometimes I think, probably less right now, I think our culture can be a little bit of two minds on death. On the one hand, it's going to be something that we welcome. On the other hand, it's something that we hate. As I say that, I realize that And N.T. Wright's, I have thought that, but also N.T. Wright's Surprised by Hope, that's where he begins diagnosing the culture. So I'll go with his diagnosis that we either treat death as a welcome friend, like as a relief, or we treat it like what I think it is, which is the great enemy that will be defeated. It's in Corinthians, Paul says it is the last enemy. The reason the psalmist wants to avoid death, at least not phrased here, it's not so that he could do more things. It's not so because his bucket list was incomplete, but because in death, who can give God praise? And this gives us an idea that at the time in which the psalm was written, they did not believe that the life after death was a full life, and this is what gave rise to the churches later as they began to understand things more from God. They came to realize that there is praise in the resurrection, but death is not desired. And it's okay for us to hate death. It's okay for us to call death evil and to know that it is evil. It's okay for us to not want to die. This gets to, if there is no praise of God in death, then life would be praising God. Then life would be living a life of praise and celebration and joy and worshiping God. And so sometimes I think we prematurely choose death by avoiding worship, by not worshiping God. Today is going to be a little bit dreary. It's going to be overcast, I think, all day. And for those of us in Michigan, we are desperately needing sunshine. We've had a long winter. A dreary day is not good for our mental health. Hopefully you have some sort of flower blooming near you that you can see, and you can tell yourself, oh, this rain is good. It will bring more life. Hopefully you will be able to worship God today, and in worshiping God you are choosing life. For the chief end of man, as the Westminster Shorter Catechism says, is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. May you glorify God today, and may you enjoy God in your offering him worship and praise. For that is why we were created. God bless you. May you have a happy Tuesday this Holy Week. Take care.